Welcome to Type C Tech Reviews. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Pixio PXC327 Advanced. If at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same monitor, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links, but let's jump into it. All right, right off the bat, this is a 31.5-inch curved gaming monitor with a resolution of 2560 by 1440p. Now this brings the PPI, or pixels per inch, essentially how crisp and clear the image is actually going to appear to your eye. This brings it to about 93 pixels per inch. Now this is a similar PPI to like what a 1080p 24-inch monitor would be. So those are similar, but obviously this is still slightly better because you have just more data points as there's more pixels on the screen. Small text will have visible pixelation, but movies and games and really anything with motion does look nice and crisp and clear. As for the panel type, this is a VA panel, and we'll talk about ghosting, don't worry about that. All right, but let's talk ports. This has two DisplayPort 1.2s, yes, two display ports, that's correct. And then this has one HDMI 2.0, a 3.5mm audio out, and then one USB Type A, although you cannot use the USB Type A. This is only for firmware updates, as there's no upstream port, and I don't think it actually powers anything. So not very many ports, nothing crazy here, but it's exactly what you need. Also, the HDMI will go up to 144 Hertz, whereas the display ports will go full refresh rate. And with that, let's talk refresh rate. This hits 165 Hertz natively and has FreeSync Premium. This also works well with G-Sync, as we do expect, which is great, no problems there. All right, but let's talk brightness. Firstly, this is rated for 320 nits in SDR, and after testing, this did hit between 315 and 320, which is, well, right in that rating, so that's great. Now, if you do switch it into the more color accurate settings, this will drop it to around 288, 290 nits. Now, this is a good brightness. The image overall looks very pretty and vibrant, and this is like an average brightness. It's not great, but it's definitely not bad at all. It's right there in the middle. I'm not overly positive about it. I'm not overly negative about it. It's good. If you have direct sunlight, you may want to close the curtains, but you don't need to be in an absolutely completely dark room for this to be a very enjoyable gaming experience. But yeah, if you're used to a normal monitor, it's probably around what your monitor will have. Around 300 nits is pretty average. Now, as for HDR, the overall screen brightness in a 100% window doesn't really change that much. However, what you do take advantage of in HDR is the wider color gamut, which is fantastic and honestly kind of shocking at this price point. Also, being a VA panel, this does have much deeper blacks than something like an IPS panel, so you do have a more contrasty HDR-y experience. Now, you're not getting crazy high nittage in that HDR. However, that's really the only thing that you're not getting here. But again, think about the price point. So the HDR experience overall, considering the price point, is actually really good. If you enjoy gaming in HDR or watching movies in HDR, you will take advantage of that wider color gamut, and you do still get nice deep blacks. So overall, for the price, I think it's great. But with that, let's talk about the colors. Firstly, this covers 95% of the DCI-P3 color space, which is awesome. That's like really cool at this price point. Now, the out-of-the-box accuracy is a little bit of a different story here. It's not too great. It's not super accurate out of the box. That being said, it's not like the worst that I've ever seen. It's not like completely unusable, just looking crazy out of the box. Like, we have actually seen some monitors that look absolutely terrible out of the box with accuracy. This one is pretty bad, but it's not like unusable. Out of the box, this was significant, like way too cool, hitting 8,723 kelvins with a target of 6,500 kelvins. That just means it's too cool. The blues were way oversaturated and the red and greens were just way undersaturated. Now, this is in the normal color temperature settings, and I'll put all of the readings up on the screen so you can see them yourselves and make your own judgments. But after testing all the different settings, the warm setting was the most accurate setting. Now, even in the sRGB setting, which you would expect that they would probably try to make it more accurate, it definitely was not. The warm was absolutely the best and most accurate, although still not that accurate at all. However, if you don't want to do a calibration, or if you don't have a calibration tool, that's fine. I would just set this in the warm color setting right out of the box, and it's probably going to be fine for you. But if you did want to do a color calibration, you can absolutely do that, and it calibrated pretty well. Now, talking more basic speak, this looks great. I mean, in the warm setting, all the colors look great. Not perfect, but for a gamer, it's nice and vibrant. And that's really the most important thing if you're just going to be gaming. All right, and finishing it up with the colors, this can output 10 bits of color at full resolution and refresh rate, which is awesome. And well, again, a little bit surprising. So the colors here are really, really good. Although the accuracy could be a little bit better, but there's definitely some stuff you can do about that if you want to. But let's talk contrast ratio. This is actually really good here. Now this is rated for 3,500 to 1 contrast ratio. And after testing, this actually outdid this a little bit, hitting 3,800 to 1. Now overall, this is great. The blacks are way deeper than an IPS panel, but definitely not in OLED territory. We're not expecting that, but if you do want deeper blacks, a more contrasty image, especially for like night games or just movies that have deeper blacks in them, this is going to look significantly better than an IPS panel in terms of the blacks. And the fact that you can get this good of performance matched with the color gamut and all of the refresh rate and everything else, I mean, for the price, for the budget, we'll go over that at the end of the video, but it's really good. But let's talk a negative. Backlight bleed. This has backlight bleed. It had a substantial, like actually a lot of backlight bleed, but none of the backlight bleed was super intense, if that makes sense. Like on some monitors, we only see a little bit of backlight bleed, but it's a large, very bright amount of backlight bleed. This was fairly dim backlight bleed, but there was a lot of it, all on the top, all on the bottom. It wasn't good. And from my experience with Pixio, even though they make great monitors overall, they seem to have a quality control issue with their backlight bleed. That's something that I have come across in my time with Pixio, both with monitors that I've reviewed or monitors that I haven't reviewed. Maybe it's only the ones that I haven't reviewed, and maybe that was a reason that I did not. But basically, if you're gonna buy this monitor, I would not say that's a reason not to buy this monitor, as the backlight bleed on this one, even though it was a lot, it may not have been enough for me to not send it back. But just look for it. Check for backlight bleed, put a black screen on, and just check for backlight bleed. If it's bad enough, just ask for a replacement and you probably won't have any issues. I don't know how much this happens, but again, it's a quality control issue. It shouldn't be the panel itself. All right, but let's talk response time and ghosting. This is incredibly important with a VA panel that, well, all VA panels have ghosting. All right, this hits a 1 millisecond gray to gray response time, which is quite fast for a VA panel, but again, probably not what it's actually hitting. How does this do with ghosting? That's what we wanna know. Well, it's actually quite good. It's very low. Now, it's not very low like the Samsung Neo G8, which honestly looked like of an IPS panel, like a fast IPS panel, but this is significantly lower than your average VA panel and even more expensive VA gaming panels. In game, this didn't really bother me, which is telling because ghosting is very prevalent on VA panels. As for the different overdrive settings, medium is the best. That's when you should probably set it in. I think there's a little bit of something going on, but I didn't really notice it during game. If you wanted the absolute best picture quality, but slightly more ghosting, then I would set it in I think it's low, but medium is what I set it in most of the time, and that was great for me. But overall, I think this is probably one of the best 32-inch VA gaming panels in this price point with ghosting. It's probably the best one for ghosting, which is, well, really, really good. That makes this, well, very recommended because of that. You pair the colors and everything else, and then the ghosting, and it's like, wow, this is pretty dang solid. All right, but let's talk about menu system and controls. They're fine here, okay? They're just fine. The controls are a little bit, not my favorite because they're over on the right back side. So if you have a dual or triple monitor setup, it's gonna be very hard to put your hand back there to access those controls. However, it uses a single joystick, and the joystick is not quite right. It works just like every other joystick on every other monitor, but the controls are a little bit off. Like in the menu system, some things are not quite the same, like to turn up and down things and on things. It takes a little bit to get used to. The menu system itself, though, while it's not pretty, it's fairly functional. You can get to everything pretty easily. You can see where everything is and everything kind of makes sense and is labeled correctly. So yeah, it gets a pass. It's fine. It's nothing amazing, but it'll definitely work. All right, let's talk Vesa compatibility. It's great here, as you would expect, being compatible with 100mm by 100mm Vesa mounts, and, well, you may actually want to mount it. We'll talk about that right now in the stand and build quality. One thing before we talk about mounting it, about the stand and build quality, is the quality is actually really impressive. The panel backing itself is not bad, it's pretty average, but the stand is really good. The bottom is all metal. The vertical section of the stand is also all clad in metal, which just feels really, really good. It looks good, it feels good, it's stable. There's no real issues at all there, and again, all metal, which is a little bit cool at this price point. Now, the one thing that you do lack here is adjustability. There's no height, there's no swivel, there's no rotation, you only get tilt adjustability. Now, that may be a deal breaker for some people, but I don't think it should be because in this day and age, there are so many monitor arms. I'll also link below a monitor arm to Amazon, one that I've tested thoroughly and am currently using 2 of them on my main setup and my editing setup. So I'll also link that one below if you do, if the adjustability is a deal breaker, don't worry about it. At this price point, it's definitely still worth it. Just get yourself an inexpensive monitor arm. But with that, let's talk about that. Price and value. Now, firstly, this is priced at $279.99, which is a really, really good price. That's a really good price. For this experience, that's really good. It's a monitor that delivers way more considering the color gamut, the ghosting, and the overall panel size at 32 inches and being slightly curved. If you are interested in non-IPS panels to get deeper blacks and want a 32-inch screen size while still being on a budget, it is very hard to go wrong with this monitor. So overall, do I recommend this monitor? Well, absolutely. If you want a no-frills, great 32-inch gaming VA panel, it's very hard to go wrong. Again, if you want to check it out, there are Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. I think Pixio did a great job with this monitor. Also, if you want to check out the unboxing and see, hey, what comes in the box, stuff like that, and also see my first impressions, video's right here, right over there. So yeah, that's it. Great monitor, great color gamut, really good ghosting. There's a lot to love here, and there's not very much to hate. All right, but this is Type C Tech Reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next video.